Very good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about SmartEvals, our new online course evaluation system. I think most of you are aware that we started a small pilot of this system in the summer and then ran this evaluation system again in the fall. So as with any new technology, it takes some time to implement it, takes some time for us to learn it. And the cool thing is about SmartEvals is that over time it learns our institution better as well. So I'm excited about it. I've used it before. I really like that it facilitates the ease of providing an evaluation for students in every course, every term, and then it gives us as faculty members thorough and timely access to our results. So if you have not yet already accessed your SmartEval dashboard, you can do that through your Blackboard. You would log into Blackboard through the portal, click on one of your previous courses, and then in the left-hand toolbar, you'll have a SmartEval button. And since this is still super new for us here at CCCC, we wanted to bring in an expert to teach this training session. So I'd like to both welcome and thank Mr. Howard Walters for joining us today. And Howard, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for sharing your time, and thanks, Christy, for inviting me. I hope you can see my screen right now. It's called the My Eval Center page, and this is the screen that instructors will land on when they log into SmartEvals. And by the way, if you have any questions, I guess you can pop them in a chat or something like that, or just hold them till the end, and we'll bring them all up. Now we are looking at a demonstration version of the product, which means that there are some features that are displayed, but they are not enabled at the school. Well, probably just yet. As Christy mentioned, it is a growing, evolving solution here at the school. So just to describe what you see right here on the landing page for instructors, at the very top you've got a menu. Let me see if I can zoom that a little bit. And it starts with My Eval Center, which is basically just a home button to bring you back to this page. From there, you have Edit, where you can edit a thank you note that can be displayed to your students after they click the Submit button on doing your evaluation. You might want to be cautious about any communication you have with the students through the SmartEval system to ensure the student that you don't know who you're communicating with. Like, hi, I don't know who you are, but the system tells me that you didn't do my evaluation yet. Please click the link below, and I'd appreciate your feedback. That would be in your email, students. So any time that you do communicate with students, you want to assure that you don't know who they are, because you don't. And students, if they get a whiff that it's not anonymous or confidential, they'll stop doing it. After that, you've got your reports. You can look at historical reporting, which you don't really have a lot of, but that will give you a list of all your reports over the course of time that you've had with SmartEvals. You can preview evaluations, and I'll show you a better way to get to that. You can look at response rates, and each one of your classes is displayed with its own response rate. And the C advice in my focus, I'll touch on at the end because it's really only relevant to the school after you get a couple of semesters in under your belt, because it's a faculty development tool that requires a bunch of information, a bunch of history to be able to make an algorithm work to show you what you should be focusing on. But we won't touch on that too much now because there's not enough information in the database. Help videos and FAQ, of course. And then we always include a log out button, but everybody just closes the browser. So that's that up at the top. Then again, with the My Focus and the Give Advice boxes, we'll ignore those for now because it's not relevant. But it does give you the overall response rate. While your evaluations are open during the open evaluation period, this will be a real-time response rate graph. If you don't have any evaluations open, it's going to be a lifetime response rate graph. So in this case, this instructor has future evaluations shown, as is noted in the header bar here. Also along the right, it's got a Blackboard feature that your Blackboard administrator may or may not enable. And that's the ability to automatically add a point to something, to a grade based on the fact that the student completed the evaluation. That's a feature you'd have to talk to Blackboard about, or your Blackboard ad. So here on the typical layout of the screen is each one of the classes is shown in its own tile. And this view should persist even if you are accessing SmartEvals on a tablet. I wouldn't recommend going on a smartphone though, but it can work without having to install any kind of app. So it shows you the begin end date of the survey and when the results should be released to you. It shows the response rate. It shows a preview button, and this is the button that is enabled for you. And hitting a preview button will show you the evaluation that is going to be presented to the student at the time the evaluation is open. Therefore, you'll see exactly what questions are being asked if you have any concern about that. Also, logging into SmartEvals or even just opening a link from either an email or through Blackboard prior to the evaluation's opening, just prior, will give you an opportunity to double check to make sure all of the classes you expected to be evaluated are here. And I don't know what the policy is at the school. Maybe some of your classes shouldn't be evaluated. But this is an opportunity to get ahead of it. So before the evaluation's open, you have an idea of what's going on. In this particular case, we've got our open surveys. Below that, we've got surveys that are ongoing, and it shows the response rate for each one of the evaluations for each of your courses. You can email non-responding students. I believe it's not been disabled, but there again, if you're emailing a non-responding student, you want to make sure that it's always anonymous. Clicking that button brings up a screen that gives you an opportunity to set this automatically. So you only have to do it once. So that makes it very easy to do this. And we found that a instructor-driven email, in addition to the emails that the school sends out during the open evaluation period, will get you a better response rate because typically evaluations are happening at the end of the term when students are faced with making up for missed assignments and studying for finals. Where do you suppose they're going to prioritize doing their course evaluation? Well, if they get an email from their instructor in their busy inbox from their .edu inbox, chances are they're going to open it. And once they open it, half the battle is over because then you'll just have a link that says complete your evaluation right here below without having to enter any kind of login credentials. And of course, you can set it up automatically in all of your classes or just as one class. And down below that, these are the evaluations that are complete. And this is where you can see all of your reports. And your reports are available to you for as long as the school uses the SmartEvals system. So you're not depending on archiving your reports on your own, although the school typically does send you a report at the end of the evaluation period. If you don't happen to save that attachment, your email attachment, you can always access it here. And you just go into previous years down below, but you don't have any previous years, so we won't get into that. So let's take a look at what that report looks like. Once you click the button, you're brought to our custom report. And we call it a custom report because, well, it's customizable. And each one of your classes is shown here. And if you wanted to do aggregate classes for all the classes you taught, you could manipulate these drop downs to be able to have these pages automatically recalculate. And you can even change which columns are included here. So if you're never going to make a data-driven decision based on the median, you can remove that column from your version of the report by clicking the Choose Columns button up at the top. You can even choose questions. I suggest you leave the questions that are determined by your admin. These are the questions they want you to see. And typically it's every question that was in the survey. So scrolling through this, we see that these are hyperlinks. These numbers, these values, are hyperlinks. And this gives you an opportunity to do some on-the-fly analysis. So let's take, for example, this question here, number 13. It says, expectation and syllabus clearly communicate. And you see that there's a range. 58% of your students marked strongly agree, while 11% said, no, not so much, strongly disagree. And maybe you have a theory that I think the students that thought the class was described well in the syllabus evaluated me completely differently than those who thought it really wasn't communicated. So if you just click on that value, 58%, this page will automatically filter to only those responses given by that 58%. And this is exportable as a PDF or a spreadsheet with the export button in the upper right. So that'll give you a baseline of where these students evaluated you. You can remove that and get a comparable set of data from clicking the 11% and do the same thing, export it. Now you got two sets of data. Does your theory hold water? And it's just an easy way to get through that. Similarly, if the school eventually wants to include it, we can include some metadata in the system, in your reports. And that is even show you in a row what time of day these students completed the evaluation. So if your theory is that somebody who did it at 3:30 in the morning evaluated you differently than someone who did it at 3:30 in the afternoon, you might have something there, but it's an opportunity to figure that out. So leaving the custom report, we also, let's scroll down the rest of it just to see what it looks like. We've got some graphs here that'll show the average, the division average, and other averages that the school has selected to be shown, and the questions to be included. Got your distribution of scores here. It's a graphical way of representing some of the questions that are in that table above. Because we understand some people can just absorb information with different ways of visualizing that. And down below, we've got your comment, open-ended responses to the questions that are included in your survey. Below that, we've got your the word cloud, which is really a theme analysis. So we'll look for words in the comments from the students, like happy, happier, happier, or even a smiling emoticon, and create a theme called happy and include it here. And if you wanted to see which comments were used in the creation of that word in this cloud, you could just click on it. It will filter the comments based only on the comments used to make up that word cloud piece. So this being a demonstration, it's not completely filled out, but it shows you what the look and feel of the system is. Next to that is an easy to understand report, and it is a percentile rank report where we'll take, and I suggest you don't pay attention to this too much until you get a couple of semesters under your belt with the same set of questions. But what it does, it takes the highest scores of anybody that got for that question, plots it on the left, the lowest scores anybody got, plots it on the right, and then where that number is where you fall in that continuum. So it's just an easy way to understand where you are and compared to your comparison peer group. I wouldn't pay attention to the value of that answer so much as to where that answer is. On a 5-point scale example for this question number 3, you got a 4 out of 5. You might think that's great, but it's really just average. Maybe a lot of people got more closer to 5. So it's not important what that number is, it's where the number is. Following on that, we've got another graphical presentation of your results. Each question now has the same exact data that was in that table with the distribution of scores, but it's now shown in a graphical representation for people that can just absorb information visually. And if you like pie charts as opposed to bar graphs, on an individual basis, you can change it, or globally, with these buttons up at the top, just change pie charts. And similarly to all the other reports that are on this page, these will automatically recalculate based on any drop-down choices you make. So if you've got multiple courses, or if you've got multiple years, you can actually have these charts automatically recalculate, and these are exportable. Now, also during the evaluation, we talked about a little bit about emailing your students. And the concept being that's one of the few things that you can do to increase your response rate. And the better the response rate, the more valid the data. And that's one tool. Other tools that are kind of subtle. Number one, put the fact that there is an evaluation in the course syllabus. So it doesn't come as a surprise to anybody, any student that's now facing starting for finals and making up for missed exams. They know that this is part of the coursework that's expected of them. Number two, mention it in class, or if you can, and COVID is making this kind of tricky, set some time aside in class to actually complete the evaluation. And that's easy enough. On Thursday, we're going to do the evaluation in class. You can actually turn on your smartphone at that point. Hey, you say to students, Thursday comes, you say, hey, open up your email from school and click the link in their email that they provided. You're logged in without any other credentials, and please complete the evaluation. And if you've already done it, have fun for doing whatever you want else, or complete someone else's evaluation, or another of your course's evaluations to complete the set. So you can even tell people what you changed based on the results from previous evaluations. This gives the student some energy to say, yeah, he actually listens. She actually pays attention to what students are saying and has modified the class to make it better so that we can enjoy this. And it also will encourage them to give good feedback so next people that take that class will get the benefit of that. And since SmartEvals can calculate your results so quickly after the evaluation is complete, you'll have this information that you can digest and use to perhaps improve your teaching before the next class begins. Just as a hint, because we are looking at a demonstration version of the school, I thought maybe you'd like to see what a student sees when they open the evaluation. So when they click on it, this is whatever question set this demonstration school is using. But the questions appear like this, and the students do not have to download and install an app to do this on a phone or other mobile device. All they have to do is log in, either through a link in Blackboard or whatever means, or a link in their email, whatever means the school has provided. The concept is each question now is shown in its own tile. So this screen will automatically adapt to the shape of the screen or the format of the screen that the student is using. For example, on a phone, each question is shown in its own screen. And a tablet, depending on its orientation, you'll get 2 or 3 questions across. And this is how the screens look on a PC. In a team taught situation, we'll ask the course questions only once, but then show the instructor's name and perhaps their photo if you've uploaded one, and questions about that instructor rather than the course. And if there's multiple instructors, more instructors will be shown, and each one will get their own version of the question set that's applied. Now, each instructor will see the course-related question results, but each instructor will not see the other instructor's instructor-related question results. It's all very, very elegant. So the student does not have to complete a full and complete evaluation for every single instructor that happens to be teaching in a team-taught course. They click Submit, and they're shown that it's done. Going back here. Now, eventually, you may be able to add questions to the evaluations. That's something that is always available. But I would suggest that the school is taking the normal precautionary steps and not overloading people with capabilities and features. That the school complete the evaluations for you. You can participate and get a great response rate. You're not responsible for getting a great response rate, but it's getting A more robust database is a team sport, so I suggest you consider playing along. So, are there any questions on what I've displayed here so far? And see if I can how I can actually see any of these questions. Let's see, or if anybody wants to crack a mic and just pipe up, because I don't see the chat board when I'm sharing my screen here.
I'll be happy to read any questions to you that come through the chat. So if anyone has a question, like you said, feel free to unmute or just type it in the chat and I can share that.
I did also want to mention that there are some video resources available for you offline. For example, if you, I think if we go up here to our help videos, there's some examples of videos that are available to you that can help you understand some of the screens as you go through them.
So we have a question about modality. Can questions be tailored for the modality of the course?
Well, yeah, the overall answer is of course. If there's an online class it should have a different question set than a seated lab class. Absolutely, we could have different questions. But what a lot of schools will do is have a core set of questions that applies to every class, and then modalities or other situations will have questions added to it. Like this department needs more specific questions about that department. These online courses need different questions than the seated courses. These lab is opposed to lecture. All those things can be additive. So yeah, we can accommodate all of that. And because of the way that we assign question sets to courses, we can automatically assign the correct question set even for course titles we've never seen before. Now, in a year or so, maybe we'll come back and we'll revisit these My Focus uh, features, where I think it'll be a lot more interesting and actually accurate to explore. Right now, I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. Don't be distracted by it. But know that it is a developing faculty development tool. Are there any other questions?
Just to clarify, that my focus that you told us not to focus on right now, that's where over time there will be a buildup of strengths.
Yeah, yeah. The validity of the My Focus tool will be strengthened by the more data it has. See, what happens is we'll go through an instructor's entire history of information, like all of the evaluations that they've had, and run all the results through an algorithm that we created, which takes into account a lot of things, the age of the class, size of the class, that type of thing. And we come up with a list. The list shows these are the questions, maybe like 3 questions, maybe fewer, that we think you should focus on to get the greatest overall improvement with the least amount of effort. In other words, don't study all that table stuff because you may be chasing down the wrong squirrel. Here are the questions you should actually work on. And if you do particularly well, we'll ask you to brag about it a little bit. Like, what did you do to get a great score on that question consistently? Now, when you brag about it, you're actually creating a database inside the school that the other instructors, any instructor, can access. So if you happen to be scoring really well on a question that another instructor maybe would be struggling with, and they click on that question in their custom report, then they can get advice for that particular question. For example, here on the reports I mentioned, we've got each one of these questions is a hyperlink. So if we went to a question that we pointed out to the instructor, here's the advice that other instructors gave for that particular question, or any advice throughout it, because you can search this once this database is set up. So the concept being, these instructors at that school did these specific things at that school, so it says that these are effective at that school. That's the concept here. The faculty that are scoring higher on questions can help struggling faculty members on the same question. That's the overall concept. And without people giving advice, it's not really going to work. But just people being pointed out which questions they should focus on is going to work. But either one of those things really doesn't work really well until we get a lot of information in the system, because you get a bigger sample size. If you only got 5 classes and a total of 30 respondents, then that's not really going to be as valid as if you had 60 classes with 2,000 respondents, that type of thing. So that's why we say pause it a little bit until after perhaps a year. We don't want people get too upset.
That makes sense. Thank you very much. We have another question in the chat. Do directors and department chairs have access to the evaluations of the faculty in their department? And yes, I believe they do.
Yeah, typically they do. And the directors are given a set of permissions at the implementation stage, and that can be edited going down the road by anybody with administrative access here. But yeah, typically department heads are given which departments and which instructors they can see. So anything outside of that purview is not visible. So it's not like well, in most cases, the department head is in charge of specific departments and not in charge of the whole thing. But they may see response rates for the whole school, but they won't see results for the whole school. And there are a different set of controls that the administrator of this system has to show or restrict what the department heads can see and what they can do. And there's a different landing page completely. Anything else from an instructor's point of view? Well, I hope everybody got at least a little bit of something out of this. If there are questions, concerns, comments, you can email me directly if you'd like. But the school does have a pathway for instructors to make comments about the system itself. But if you have a question about what you're seeing and maybe you need a little help, my email address is simple. It's howard@smartevals.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or refer you to somebody that you should be talking to.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time, and I especially appreciate what you mentioned about the opportunity to talk with students and tell them what we've changed in our courses based on previous evaluations and student feedback. I think that's a very good point.
It can be a deal maker with some students, because back in the day, back when they had the bubble sheets where you had all your answers along the right edge of the paper. And when I was in college, we had those kind of evaluations, and I'd be doing the KISS logo and Van Halen logo in those bubbles. I didn't care. But at least here, if you tell somebody that, I took a English language course so I could speak to you better and present my information in a more understandable way. That's huge. And a student may respond to that by saying, wow, if people said I couldn't understand them, but now I can, that really works.
Absolutely. It's incredibly important to make sure that our students know that they have a voice, and that it matters the experience they have in our courses. So we appreciate the demo, and faculty, if you have any other questions about the reports or the system in general, please, now's your chance while we have Howard. Um, Again, type them in the chat or unmute if you have anything you'd like to ask.
Yeah, yeah. You see, it's really nothing to be afraid of. Everything's right there in front of you. Click where you want to click. You can't break anything, so you go ahead and explore. It's okay.
They're being quiet, so it looks like we don't have any questions. We'll definitely pass those along if we get questions. And of course, we may have you back, Howard, as we build more data in the system and can use that My Focus. Oh, we do have a question. Amy's asking if there's a way to differentiate between multiple instructors or if that would require two separate evaluations. So I think that goes back to something you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah. The way that we look at your question set is we examine the questions for any given course and say these questions kind of apply to the course itself. How was the textbook, that type of thing. And then there are some questions that are applied to the instructor only. You know, did the instructor come prepared for class? Things like that. Now, if there isn't no distinction, like all the questions are about the instructor, the system will still work the same way. If there's multiple instructors in a class teaching the same set of students, what happens is we'll present the course-related questions at the top of the evaluation. Then we'll show the instructor's name, the first any one of the instructors, and ask the questions about that instructor. Below that is the next instructor's name, and ask questions about that instructor. So the course-related questions get answered only once, so the student does not have to do that again. And when the results are released, each of those instructors will get the course-related question results and the results for questions asked only about them, not the other instructor. So there is a differentiation. Now, department heads may blend those together or just take that all into account when looking at each individual instructor. But the elegant feature to that is the student only has to fill out one evaluation for their course.
Great, thank you. I think it's really helpful to see the different changes in the course blocks too when the survey period is open and when it's closed, because knowing that response rate is happening in real time is something that I find valuable when I'm teaching a course.
Sure, and in the email reminders that you can send to your faculty, it's not a requirement, but if you do send faculty email reminders during the open evaluation period, you can include a mail merge feature that shows the response rate for that instructor as of when that email was created. So of course that's a ongoing differentiating number, and hopefully it increases each time. But if they don't even log in, they're able to see what the response rate is as of like last night. So in order to get advantage of SmartEvals, you don't really even have to log in. But I think to take full advantage of SmartEvals, you should log in, become familiar with it, and at least know that you can get your reports anytime that you want, right on demand, without having to call down to another department or someone else and say, "Can you get my report from 2 years ago?" Because here it is.
Another question for you: are there, oops, it just disappeared on me. Are there any benchmarks for the data elements in the evaluation based on college division and national data?
Well, national data is only available if a school uses our question set that is built into the product. Now, I got to tell you, it's a really long survey because there's lots of different things that a school may choose to use, but a lot of schools don't. Because they come into SmartEvals with an established question set. So we don't really have an exact version of a question set from a school that would be included in our national data set. So unless the school uses our standard built-in question set, we don't have any national data point to compare it to.
And Erica, we might be able to work with Stormy to get, national data for your program specifically, if that's what you're looking for. So, very good. Any other questions? All right. Well, we appreciate the questions that did come through, and may have the deans or Dr. Short follow up with some of you just to get you some more specific answers to those. But again, thank you, Howard. We really appreciate your time, and I'm sure we will be coming back to you with more questions in the future.
Well, I hope so, because that means that people are engaged in actually looking at it and have a question about what they're seeing. I love answering the questions about the system. So if there are any questions, get them to me, and we'll make sure that everybody is comfortable and confident in the SmartEvals system. That's the goal.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, you as well.